Okay guys, just a quick little overview of this video. I managed to get the clutch together in it. I managed to get the stator on. I wasn't 100% sure that I was assembling it correctly, though the clutch does seem to have action, but you know, I won't fully know until the engine starts up and stuff, so I'm not going to have the chain on the final drive sprocket just in case the clutch isn't working correctly. That way, at least if the engine's running, it's not going to matter too much if the transmission is engaged, if it's in gear. But anyway, yeah, I managed to get it together. I wasn't totally certain. My manual is for 72, the motor's a 74, and it seems to be the only manual available for the bike right now. Haven't found a 74 manual out there, and there are some differences between the engines. So anyway, like I said, it's a little bit of an experimental thing that's going on here. So I guess you can use this video as a reference for what the engine looks like on the inside and somewhat how things go together, but I wouldn't be 100% reliant on this because I'm not 100% sure I'm putting this together right from this point on. Like I said, going to be a lot of trial and error. I'm sure I'm going to have to go back and fix some things here and there, and I probably won't film it either. I might make notes of it along the way, but definitely going to be a lot of redundant, repetitive work that I'm going to have to do for myself to get this thing going. But anyway, basic goal is to get the bike running right now, and once I get it running, I'll go back over it and, fix what needs to be fixed or change what needs to be changed. So let's get to it. Okay, this is transmission mishap day number 2. I've been at this for quite a while the last couple days, and I'm trying this a different way. So I've decided to put 6 plates on it, just like what came off the bike. Previously I thought that maybe I had found a problem because the book only shows 5, but that doesn't seem to be working out. So I've got 6 plates on it right now. It has action without the spring plates. So there's that. I've aimed this plate inward towards the gearbox, just like how it came out when I first took it apart. Also, I aimed the convex plate, the other one, this one right here, the unique steel plate. I've aimed that convex side out towards us. So it just made sense with the action in there. This nut gets 23 pounds of foot torque, and there's a special wrench that's supposed to fit into these holes, about half of them. And you hold it, and then you take the torque wrench to it. I didn't have that, so I used a C-clamp. I'll flash a clip of the first time because I did this method once before. But anyway, that works okay, but you got to be careful because you can mar the edges if you don't have it in a good enough spot. I can see the evidence that somebody had done that before me, but I didn't mar my edge. I know that you're supposed to use the special tools, but I don't have them, so the C-clamps are working just fine. Next thing we're going to do is get the pressure plate or the thrust plate on there. Alright, so I went out and bought a puller because the C-clamps weren't working out. And yes, there is a clutch compressing tool for this bike, but it also comes with 3 compressing bolts that apparently the guy who has it for sale doesn't have the bolts. And he lists that in the description as well, that you'll just need to get the bolts. And it's like, well, I've looked everywhere online, I can't find the bolts, so buying the tool would be completely useless. So I went ahead and did this instead. It's working alright. Every time I go around one turn here, that thrust plate gets a little bit lower. So yeah, this is going to be the method because, like I said, I don't have the actual tool I'm supposed to have. I think this will work. Alright, so now we can attempt to thread on those nuts. It's amazing that I ever got this together without one of these. Okay, I got those on. So yeah, looks like this was a good buy, this tool. That made things so much easier. Like I said, I don't know how I managed to do it, but when I first went through this bike, I actually managed to get that thing back on there with a C-clamp. I don't know how I did it. It wasn't fun. I don't even want to think about it anymore. That done. Next, you just want to make sure that the shifter and the spindle are both in 2nd gear. And then when you fit them together, you want to make sure that the groove on the spindle here, the groove right there, meets with that pin right there, and that this bearing feeds into the spiral channel right there. So in order to make sure this is in 2nd gear, I've already determined that 1st gear is all the way in this way through messing around with the bike so much. So that's 1st gear right now, and neutral's between 1st and 2nd. See, right now it's not in gear. I can move it freely. So that's how you know it's not in gear. So if you turn this around enough, if you spin this gear around enough and press on that lever enough, it'll eventually go to 1st gear. I'll have to actually use 2 hands to do that, so hang on a second. Place you guys there. I don't know if you guys can see, but okay, that's first gear right there. So if you can pull this out, that's neutral. And that should be second gear right there. That was the next click. So the same thing goes for the spindle. You want it to be in second gear. This guy right here. I'll place you guys right here. This is how you determine whether you're in second gear or not with this thing. So there's a cam on the back side here. There's some grooves. And you can see that each one of these is basically a channel. There's a little pin on the inside of here that fits into each channel. So these are your gear channels. You got one, then there's one tick in between halfway, as you can see, and then two. So that tick in between is neutral. It's between first and second. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and that's neutral. So with this part, you just rotate it around. There's the pin right there that clicks into the channels. You want to make sure that everything's all nice and oiled up. You take a screwdriver or flat-edged item like so, and you press the hat down here, press the pin down, kind of rotate at the same time. How you do it with my thumb right there. And then once you get that compressed, you just try to make it work into the channel. That's one click. It's kind of being a little bit stubborn, so I can feel it wants to go a little past. Another method you can do is take the shift lever and put it on the teeth right there. That'll help give you more leverage. That's 2 clicks and 3 clicks. Now that's second gear. So with those 2 items in second gear, the next thing you want to do is feed it through, like I was saying. And you want to make sure the pin aligns with it too as well. So I just kind of feed the channel in like so. And it should sit down lower than this, so it's not in the right location yet. There we go. So that's in the right location. I usually rock the motor back forward like that real quick. It's off camera. Sorry about that. I just try to feel for this lever, try to guide it. There it goes. It clicked. So I made sure the bearing is in the spiral groove there. And then after that, we can mess around with the outer case and get it on there, get the gasket in place and everything. Okay, so we get our thrust pin in place, and we don't forget the bearing there and the washer. And next we're going to get these case halves together here. And you can see that it can be a real pain to get the gasket in the right position. And they do say to use some grease to hold the gasket to the case, but that doesn't really work. So what I like to do is I put the gasket in place like so, and I just chase the holes around with these screws. So I grab one of the mounting screws here and I stick it through. It can be hard to do one-handed. And you can see that you start to pin the gasket, and you just take your hands and chase the gasket around until you get in the right position and get the screw through it. And I do that all the way around the case. So the action on the clutch wasn't really doing anything. The arm was just moving like this and wasn't disengaging. So I'm putting another washer on the thrust pin here, which is what the book says to do. I went downstairs and I actually found this thicker washer in a box that just so happens to be the right diameter. So that was kind of lucky. So we seem to have some action, because as you can see, as I lift the lever, it wants to stop, and you can hear that it's lifting the case. See, pushes the case out. So that means there's action there on the clutch now. Now the problem is I've been at this step about a dozen times now, maybe more. I've been working at it for several hours, and every time I take it apart and put it back together, I get a different result on the clutch arm, even though I'm not changing really anything. You know, I just put that washer on, so that is a change, but I've done it before. I've already done this once, actually several times before, so we're getting different results every single time we put this back together. It can be very frustrating. That's kind of why I'm skipping around a lot with this video. It's just because I'm getting a lot of trial and error, so I don't really want to film it all. Okay, I've got most of the case back on here. I've still got a couple screws to do on this side, but for the most part it's back on. And I just wanted to say again, I'm sorry about jumping around a lot, guys, but this section's really annoyingly hard, complicated, a lot of trial and error. I know I've said it once before, but like right here we're having a problem. So as you can see, there's definitely a load on this because it takes effort to move it. So that's definitely engaging the clutch. The only problem is every time I push this in, I go to put some spin on this sprocket here, expecting it to spin freely, and it doesn't. So I'm not sure if the clutch is properly set or not. And something tells me I'm not going to be able to find out until it's in the frame and working and everything. This is shifting correctly though, so I do have that. The bell nut here has been adjusted pretty much to where it seems to work, so I didn't film that bit because, once again, that was a little bit of a tedious annoyance too. But yeah. Anyway, so I'll probably have to return to this area, and I probably won't film it, but basically that's how it goes together. Alright, so I got a little bit of a problem with my timing here on my stator. My manual shows a points and condenser stator because my manual is for an older bike, a couple years older. So you can see it talks about the points, it has an arrow on it, and of course the illustrations aren't the greatest anyway, but it's not really relevant because I've got electronic ignition, which is better. Yes, this stator does belong to this bike. 74 is when they, I think it was either 73 or 74 when they flipped to electronic ignition. It might have been an option in 72 as well, but anyway, that's what I've got. And the only way to adjust electronic ignition is to just rotate the plate, like so. But without any kind of manual to tell me where the plate needs to go in relation to top dead center, I basically can only approach this with trial and error. So that'll be fun. Alright, so I've got the piston at top dead center right now, and I've got the plate adjusted to about here. And I did that because in the older photos and videos, the video of me taking this apart, I can see that the clearance on the screw is about here, so that seems to be a ballpark of where this was adjusted. I don't know if it's correct, but that's where it was previously, so I'm going to go with that for reference, and hopefully it's okay. If not, I guess we'll just adjust it. I got to get the flywheel on there, and I got to get this woodruff key in between the flywheel channel and the crankshaft channel there. It's got a little round in the crankshaft channel. So the thing about that is, my woodruff key that I got, my dirt bike guy just gave it to me for free. He said just try it, seemed to fit the channels, so we thought it would work. It seems to be too tall. And I went to the hardware store and I found a bunch of different width ones, but I couldn't find anything with a different height. They all seem to be this height, which suggests to me that, you know, woodruff keys are usually fairly standard sizes. But this one just does not seem to want to fit. You know, I'm sitting there fitting the flywheel over and it just wants to stick out like about that much every time. Plus it doesn't really want to stay put. I tried the old grease trick, but it's too warm right now, so the grease isn't really holding anything in place. So I'm going to go ahead and modify this one. I could buy the part number correct one. The guy that I buy parts from on eBay, he has it for sale, but he wants $10 for this. And at the hardware store, they're like 55 to 75 cents. I'm not going to spend $10 on this teeny little part. There's just no way I can put that $10 towards a lot of other better things on the bike versus this tiny little part. I'd rather spend, you know, just 10 minutes modifying it. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. And there you have it all together. It looks twice as big as a 125, I'd say. It's hard to believe how much air fin they gave this motor. But yeah, pretty good looking engine. So now what I got to do is go through the fuel system and clean it up. I got to clean out the carburetor and clean up the air filter box and such. Might have to get a different air filter element because mine's a little bit tarnished and ruined. It might work, not sure. But yeah, I got to go through the fuel system as well, and the gas tank needs some work. It's a bit rusty on the inside and out. Probably going to sandblast it or whatever and paint it a different color because I hate getting rid of the original color, but it's been spray painted over and they, you know, it's all beat up on the outside of the tank anyway and rusty. So yeah, I'm going to go through and do a couple things like that over the next couple weeks and you know, fill it up with some transmission fluid, make sure it's not leaking, and hopefully we'll get it into the frame here soon. I got to get some throttle cables figured out. The clutch cable I ordered here on the floor I just discovered doesn't fit this motor's mount, so I got the wrong clutch cable. I've got to either talk about that. I have a cable that'll work with it, though. I got some things to sort out anyway, and I'm hoping in the next few weeks to try and get it running here, but might take a little longer, just depends on what comes up. But it's getting closer.